I've been thinking about this a lot lately. People keep saying we're more free than ever, more options, more platforms, more voices. But honestly, sometimes it feels like the opposite. Like, I'm not being forced to do anything. No one's holding a gun to my head. But I still wake up tired, still feel pressure. Still feel like I'm running inside something I didn't choose, and I don't even know what to call that.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. It's a strange kind of exhaustion, not from work, not from people, from being managed.
Yeah, not controlled, not oppressed, just guided all the time. What to care about, what to be angry about, what to want next. Sometimes I wonder, do I even know what I want anymore, or am I just reacting all day?
You see, that question alone already tells you something important. People who are truly free don't usually ask it.
So what is this then? Because when people talk about slavery, they mean chains, violence, force. This feels quieter than that.
It is quieter. That's what makes it harder to notice. There's an ancient story that talks about this exact feeling. Not about oppression, about organization. Not about suffering, about success.
Are you talking about Egypt?
No, not Egypt. Before Egypt, there was something else, something closer to our world, the Tower of Babel.
Oh, that story. Most people remember it like people tried to reach heaven. God got angry, confused their languages.
Yes, that's the surface version. The deeper version is much closer to what you just described.
You know what's strange, David? When people talk about being controlled today, it always turns into politics or conspiracy. But that's not what I feel. What I feel is smaller than that. Quieter. Like I'm not being pushed, I'm being shaped.
Yes, that's a good distinction. Control feels loud, shaping feels subtle. One resists control. Few notice shaping.
Exactly. It's like no one tells me what to think directly, but somehow I always know what I'm supposed to care about this week, what I'm supposed to be angry about, what I'm supposed to want next. And when I don't feel that way, I start wondering if something's wrong with me.
That feeling is the beginning of the question, not who is controlling me, but where did my inner voice go?
That's the part that really bothers me. Because I don't feel oppressed. I feel managed. Like life is a series of prompts now. Notifications, trends, metrics, deadlines. And somewhere along the way I stopped choosing. I started responding.
Yes, and that's why people feel tired even when nothing dramatic is happening. Because responding all day slowly replaces living.
That's exactly it. And then people say, be grateful, you're free. And I am, I just don't feel free.
Because freedom on the outside doesn't always mean freedom on the inside. Sometimes it hides the opposite.
So when you said there's an ancient story that talks about this kind of slavery, I didn't expect you to mean bauble. I always thought bauble was about pride.
That's how it's usually told. But pride isn't the heart of it. Dependence is.
Dependence on what?
Dependence on structure, on systems, on something outside ourselves to tell us who we are. There's a line in the story that's very quiet, but very revealing. It says, "They said, let us build ourselves a city and let us make a name for ourselves." Not to reach heaven, to secure identity.
So, they weren't trying to be gods. They were trying to stop feeling lost.
Yes. And that's what makes this story so close to us, because most people today aren't looking for power. They're looking for certainty.
That hits. Because when you don't know who you are, anything that gives you a label feels like relief. Job titles, follower counts, political sides, social groups. It's like, at least now I belong to something.
Belonging can heal, but it can also replace. And when belonging replaces inner direction, the system becomes the self.
So this is where slavery starts, not with chains, with comfort.
Yes, with comfort that slowly removes the need to listen inside.
All right, so if Babel isn't about arrogance, and it isn't about rebellion, then it's about something much closer to home.
It's about the moment humanity discovered that it could build something so efficient, it would never have to feel uncertain again.
So let's talk about Nimrod for a moment. Because every time I hear that name, it sounds like some ancient villain. Like the bad guy in the story. But the way you're describing Babel, it doesn't sound like there were villains at all.
That's an important shift. Nimrod isn't a villain, he's a pioneer, not of violence, of structure.
Structure as power.
Yes. Before Nimrod, power was physical. Who had the biggest army? Who could threaten the most? Nimrod realized something different. If you organize people well enough, you don't need to scare them. They will follow the system because it feels safer than uncertainty.
So instead of ruling with fear, he ruled with coordination.
Yes, belonging, efficiency, purpose, all things humans deeply want. And that's what made him powerful, not force, relevance.
That's unsettling, because that sounds exactly like how influence works today. Not threats, algorithms, narratives, trends.
Modern power rarely says do this or else. It says this is who you are.
So Nimrod didn't tell people what to do. He told them who to be.
Yes. And when identity comes from outside, freedom quietly disappears, not because anyone takes it, but because no one needs it anymore.
That's heavy, because it means slavery today isn't about losing choice. It's about losing the need to choose.
And that's the deepest form of control. When people stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, what is expected of me?
So Nimrod becomes the first system builder.
Nimrod, he's the first person to understand that if you build a structure big enough, individual conscience becomes unnecessary.
That line hits, because that's exactly how life feels sometimes. Like, I don't have to think anymore. I just have to keep up.
Exactly, and keeping up feels like living until you realize you're always behind.
Is that why the story says Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord? That line always confused me.
It's misunderstood. He wasn't hunting animals, he was hunting attention, direction, influence, the ability to shape where people look.
The hunt wasn't physical, it was psychological.
Yes, the first hunt for human consciousness.
That makes Babel feel less like an ancient myth and more like a blueprint.
A blueprint that keeps repeating every time humans choose structure over inner freedom.
If Nimrod is about structure, then the tower itself must be about something deeper than height. Because honestly, David, I never understood why a tower was such a big deal. People build tall things all the time.
Height isn't the issue, dependence is. The tower isn't about reaching the sky, it's about replacing the need to look inside.
Replacing it with what?
With certainty. With something visible, measurable, collective. A structure that says, you don't need to struggle anymore. Just belong to this.
So the tower wasn't a rebellion against heaven, it was an escape from uncertainty.
Yes, uncertainty makes people human, but it also makes them afraid. And when fear meets efficiency, systems are born.
That's wild. Because today, everything promises the same thing. Apps that tell you what to think, algorithms that tell you what to like, systems that tell you who you are. All so you don't have to sit in not knowing.
And when you don't sit in not knowing, you stop listening to yourself.
There's a line in the story that says, they built the tower with bricks. I never thought that meant anything.
It means everything. Bricks are uniform, stone is unique. Bricks are made to fit. Stone has its own shape. The story is quietly saying, this society chose uniformity over uniqueness.
So the tower's built on sameness.
Yes, and sameness feels safe, but it slowly erases the individual.
That explains something I've always felt. Like, I can be different, as long as I'm different in the approved way.
That's not freedom, that's customization.
Customization inside a cage.
Yes, a comfortable one.
So the tower becomes this symbol of progress, but the kind that quietly replaces responsibility.
It becomes a progress that says, you don't need to grow inside, we'll grow for you outside.
That's heavy, because it means people didn't lose freedom by force. They traded it.
Exactly, and trades feel fair till you realize what you gave away.
So you are saying that Babel isn't about punishment, it's about consequence.
You see, when humans build something to replace inner freedom, the cost is always the same. They gain structure. They lose voice.
So, after the tower comes the part everyone remembers. the confusion of languages, and it's always told like a punishment. Like God got angry and said, "Fine, you don't get along anymore."
That's the common version, but there's another way to hear it. Not as punishment, but as consequence.
Consequence of what?
Of replacing inner listening with outer structure. When people stop listening inside, they lose a shared inner language. They can still talk, but they stop understanding.
That feels uncomfortably accurate, because today everyone has a voice. More platforms than ever, more opinions than ever, but somehow less understanding than ever.
Yes, noise increases, listening disappears, not because people don't care, but because no one is listening from inside anymore.
So the confusion of language isn't about different words, it's about different inner worlds.
Exactly. When meaning comes from systems instead of conscience, everyone speaks from structure, not from truth, and structure doesn't understand structure, it only competes with it.
That explains social media perfectly. Everyone talking, no one hearing. Everyone proving, no one understanding.
It looks like communication, but it feels like isolation.
There's that line again in the story. They could no longer understand one another. I always thought that meant languages, but you're saying it's deeper than that.
Yes. They lost resonance, not vocabulary. Resonance is when you feel that the other person is speaking from the same human place you are. Without that, every conversation becomes a debate.
That's exactly how life feels right now. Like every discussion turns into a side, a camp, a label.
Because when inner truth is replaced by outer identity, people don't speak as humans anymore. They speak as positions.
So Babel ends not with destruction, but with disconnection.
Yes. Not collapse, fragmentation. The tower still stands, the system still works, but people no longer meet each other inside it.
That might be the saddest part of the story. Not that people were scattered, but that they stopped recognizing each other.
And that's why this story matters today, because it shows how a world can be perfectly organized and deeply lonely at the same time.
You know what keeps coming back to me, David? That idea that Babel isn't about people being forced into something. It's about people choosing something that slowly traps them. That's harder to accept.
Because when slavery is chosen, it doesn't feel like slavery, it feels like safety.
And safety is hard to argue with. I mean, if something works, if it pays the bills, if it gives you status, who wants to question it?
That's why this kind of bondage is stronger than chains. Chains make people want to escape. Comfort makes people want to stay.
So when people say today, everyone's free, they're not wrong. They're just missing something.
Yes. Freedom on paper is not the same as freedom in experience. A person can have every option and still feel unable to choose.
Because choice requires something uncomfortable, responsibility.
And responsibility means you can no longer hide inside systems. You have to stand somewhere yourself.
That's probably why people defend the very things that exhaust them. Work culture, social pressure, endless productivity. They complain, but they also protect it.
Because letting go of a system means facing the question it was answering for you. Who am I without this structure?
That's a terrifying question.
Yes. And Babel shows what happens when a whole society tries to avoid it together. They build something so powerful that no one has to ask it anymore.
So the tower isn't just a building, it's an agreement to not look inside.
An agreement to let the system answer what only the soul can answer.
There's another line in the story that people don't usually talk about. It says the people were all of one language and one speech. At first that sounds like unity.
Yes, but sometimes unity is just silence wearing a good name. When everyone speaks the same language, no one has to listen deeply.
So even unity can become a cage.
When it replaces inner voice, yes.
That changes how I see modern life. Because everywhere I look, there's pressure to fit into something. A career path, a lifestyle, an identity, and it all feels optional until you try to step outside it.
And that's when you feel how strong invisible walls can be.
So after all this, Babel, Nimrod, the tower, the systems, I keep waiting for the part where you tell me what we're supposed to do about it. But you haven't.
Because freedom doesn't begin with doing, it begins with seeing,
Seeing what exactly?
where you stop choosing. Not because you were forced, but because choosing became uncomfortable.
So freedom isn't about breaking chains. It's about noticing where I stopped listening to myself.
Exactly. Chains are loud, loss of inner voice is quiet, and quiet losses are the hardest to notice.
That's probably why this feels different from every conversation about power and control. Because you're not pointing at anyone. You're pointing here.
Yes, not at governments, not at media, not at systems, at the moment inside each person where they handed over responsibility.
So liberation isn't rebellion. It's not escaping society. It's not unplugging from everything.
No, liberation is much quieter than that. It's the courage to sit in uncertainty without immediately reaching for structure.
That sounds simple, but not easy.
Simple things are rarely easy, especially when we've built our lives to avoid them.
So maybe the opposite of Babel isn't destruction of the tower? It's the rebuilding of something inside.
Yes, not a tower, a voice.
That might be the hardest freedom of all.
Yes, and the most real.